July 1st, 2025. The entertainment world was shaken. Headlines everywhere. Simon Cowell's unexpected farewell. But behind the scenes, it wasn't just a goodbye. It was something far more personal. What most people don't know is that Simon's decision wasn't planned. It all started after a private phone call that changed everything. A call about Darci Lynne, a rising star turned national treasure. Darcy Lynn was facing a diagnosis no one saw coming. And when Simon found out, his reaction shocked even those closest to him. This isn't just about a goodbye. It's about the moment one of the world's toughest judges was brought to his knees by a girl he once called the future of entertainment. For years, Simon Cowell has been the unshakable face of global talent shows. From the biting critiques on American Idol to building global juggernauts like The X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, Cowell has been both feared and revered. But behind the scenes, few could have imagined that one young performer would strike such a deep emotional chord in him. That performer, of course, is none other than Darci Lynne, the ventriloquist prodigy who stole hearts around the world. When she first stepped onto the stage, few could have predicted how profoundly her journey would affect not only millions of viewers, but Simon Cowell himself. And now, with shocking news of her tragic diagnosis making headlines, everything is beginning to change. It all started like the perfect fairy tale. Darci Lynne Farmer, the Oklahoma girl with an infectious smile and a puppet on her arm, seemed destined for greatness the moment she appeared on America's Got Talent. Her ventriloquism wasn't just technically flawless. It was infused with charm, humor, and raw vocal talent far beyond her years. Even Cowell, known for his icy composure, cracked a genuine smile. She didn't just impress the judges, she captivated the world. Her golden buzzer moment became an instant viral sensation, and soon, Darcy wasn't just a contestant. She was a global symbol of youthful hope and boundless talent. But behind that meteoric rise, few could have predicted the devastating turn her story would take. Now, as news of her diagnosis ripples through the entertainment world, Simon Cowell is facing something he's rarely encountered, a heartbreak so personal, it's reshaping his entire outlook. The man who built a career on discovering stars is now grappling with the unthinkable reality that one of his brightest discoveries may be facing a future clouded by uncertainty. Whispers are already circulating that Simon, shaken by the news, is preparing to say goodbye, not just to the stage that made him famous, but to an entire era of his life. And as we peel back the curtain on this unfolding story, what we discover will leave fans speechless. The moment Darci Lynne walked onto the America's Got Talent stage, few in the audience understood the magnitude of what was about to happen. With her nervous energy, wide-eyed innocence, and puppet in hand, she seemed like just another hopeful kid with a dream. But within seconds of her performance, everything changed. The auditorium fell silent, then erupted into applause, as Darcy's ventriloquism and singing defied all expectations. Even the famously unshakable Simon Cowell leaned forward, eyes narrowed, not with skepticism, but with rare, genuine intrigue. This wasn't just talent. This was something different, raw, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. Simon Cowell has built an empire on spotting what others miss. His icy critiques, harsh as they may seem, have always come from a place of brutal honesty and a keen eye for greatness. But watching Darcy, something cracked through that familiar exterior. It wasn't just her technical skill, though that was undeniable. It was her presence, the spark, the vulnerability, the effortless ability to command a stage, even as a child. In that moment, Simon wasn't just evaluating a contestant. He was witnessing the arrival of a star, and for a man who's seen countless hopefuls come and go, that realization hit different. For once, his infamous poker face softened. What followed was nothing short of a phenomenon. Darcy's performances didn't just earn applause. They generated millions of views, global headlines, and a surge of support rarely seen in talent competitions. Cowell, ever the industry veteran, knew what this meant. He wasn't just watching a young girl with a puppet. He was watching a future icon in the making. But even then, as the confetti fell and the world celebrated, Simon likely couldn't have imagined how closely their paths would intertwine, nor how much Darcy's future would ultimately affect his own. Now, with the tragic news of her diagnosis sending shockwaves through the entertainment world, that connection has come full circle, and it's bringing Simon face to face with a side of fame and of himself that he's carefully kept hidden for decades. The smiling judge, the ruthless executive. Suddenly, all of that seems fragile in the shadow of Darcy's unexpected struggle. While the world watched Darci Lynne's rise with awe, few knew about the quiet connection forming behind the scenes, one that Simon Cowell rarely spoke about publicly. It's easy to forget that beneath the sharp suits, the wry smile, and the often brutal critiques, Simon has always been deeply invested in the success and the well-being of the young performers he champions. Over the years, insiders have revealed that Simon isn't just a ruthless talent scout. He's also fiercely protective of those he believes in. And Darcy? She wasn't just another contestant to him. She represented something far more personal, a reminder of the power of raw, untamed talent in its purest form. Sources close to the show have whispered for years that Simon took a quiet but genuine interest in Darcy's journey beyond the cameras. While other contestants faded into the background once the lights dimmed, Darcy remained on his radar. Industry insiders have described moments where Simon checked in with her team, offering guidance, advice, and, when necessary, protection from the harsher realities of the entertainment industry. For a young star navigating sudden global fame, that silent support meant everything. And for Simon, watching her grow, struggle, and still rise became a private point of pride. Though true to form, he kept most of it behind closed doors. But now, with the heartbreaking news of Darcy's diagnosis shaking the very foundation of her career and future, Simon's quiet mentorship is being thrust into the spotlight. Friends say that the news hit him harder than most realized. It wasn't just sympathy for a young talent, it was personal. For Simon, this wasn't a distant tragedy playing out in the headlines. This was happening to someone he had quietly believed in, championed, and cared for. And as the reality of Darcy's condition sets in, those same sources suggest that Simon is questioning not just his role in her story, but his place in the entertainment world altogether. The man who's spent decades building stars may now be facing the most difficult goodbye of his career, not just to Darcy's bright future, but to his own carefully constructed public persona. And as we'll soon uncover, that decision has been building for longer than anyone suspected. It started with whispers, vague reports, concerned posts from fans, and subtle absences from Darcy Lynne's usual whirlwind of performances and social media appearances. At first, many dismissed it as exhaustion, a well-deserved break for a young star who had been in the spotlight since childhood. But then came the confirmation, and it hit like a freight train. Darcy Lynne, the vibrant, smiling prodigy who had once stood on the America's Got Talent stage and silenced the world with her voice and ventriloquism, had been diagnosed with a serious medical condition. The details, at first, were scarce, but what became immediately clear was that her future, both on stage and off, had been thrown into painful uncertainty. The entertainment world reacted with shock and heartbreak. Fans flooded social media with messages of support. News outlets scrambled for details. But behind the public spectacle, those closest to Darcy, including Simon Cowell, were grappling with something far heavier. For Simon, this wasn't just a headline. It was a moment of reckoning. He had seen countless stars rise and fall, careers built and destroyed, But illness, this wasn't a scandal, a PR disaster, or a failed audition. It was real, raw, and deeply human. And for someone like Simon, who has often kept his emotions carefully guarded behind the sharp edges of fame, the news of Darcy's diagnosis pierced through that armor in a way few things ever had. Insiders describe Simon as visibly shaken in the days following the announcement. Colleagues noticed his usual sharp focus waver. Friends say conversations about future projects were quietly put on hold. For years, Simon has been the architect of dreams, building careers, launching shows, and crafting global success stories. But now, faced with Darcy's devastating diagnosis, he was confronted with a harsh truth. Even the brightest talent, even the most promising star, is still vulnerable to life's cruel twists. And as those around him watched, it became clear that this moment wasn't just about Darcy. It was triggering a deeper reflection within Simon himself, a reflection that, sources say, has him seriously considering stepping away from the spotlight altogether. After decades at the pinnacle of entertainment, is Simon Cowell preparing to say goodbye, not just to Darcy's future, but to his own legacy? The signs are impossible to ignore. Throughout his career, Simon Cowell has cultivated an image few in the entertainment world could rival: a man of steel nerves, ruthless efficiency, and unshakable confidence. He built multi-million-dollar franchises from the ground up, discovered global superstars, and weathered controversies, scandals, and the ever-shifting tides of fame. When others crumbled under public pressure or personal tragedy, Simon appeared untouchable. But those who know him best have always insisted that behind the sharp suits and signature smirk lies a far more complex man, someone fiercely loyal, quietly vulnerable, and, when pushed to his limits, capable of walking away from it all. And with Darcy Lynn's tragic diagnosis shaking the very foundation of his world, those limits may have finally been reached. It's no secret that the entertainment industry is unforgiving. Success is fleeting, fame comes at a cost, and burnout is inevitable for even the brightest stars. But Simon Cowell didn't just survive this world, he mastered it. From his early days as a record executive to becoming the global face of Got Talent and The X Factor, Simon seemed invincible. His reputation as a kingmaker wasn't built on luck. It was earned through relentless work, calculated decisions, and, above all, an uncanny ability to separate emotion from business. But Darcy was different. Her rise wasn't a calculated business move. It was raw, organic, and personal. Watching her flourish, knowing the odds stacked against young performers, Simon invested more than just his time. He invested his hope. Now, as the reality of her diagnosis settles over the industry, Simon's carefully constructed resilience is being put to the ultimate test. Sources close to him say this moment has triggered a rare kind of introspection, one the public seldom sees. Behind closed doors, Simon has reportedly been questioning not just his next business move, but his place in the industry as a whole. Friends describe a man grappling with the realization that no amount of fame, fortune, or global influence can shield those you care about from life's cruel turns. And for Simon, a man known for decisive action, that realization may be guiding him toward a decision many never expected, stepping away from the empire he built, and perhaps saying goodbye to the stage that made him a household name. As whispers grow louder, the question remains, is this the beginning of Simon Cowell's final act? While Simon Cowell has mastered the art of controlling his public image, few truly understand what happens when the cameras stop rolling. Behind the sharp-tongued critiques and calculated confidence lies a man who, according to those closest to him, carries far more emotional weight than he lets on. Over the years, Simon has faced personal trials, from a near-fatal bike accident to the immense pressure of running global franchises. But nothing has rattled him quite like the news of Darcy Lynn's diagnosis. Friends and industry insiders have revealed that this wasn't just another professional disappointment for Simon. It struck a far more vulnerable nerve, one that's forced him to reevaluate everything. Sources say that in the weeks following the announcement of Darcy's condition, Simon's usual routines changed dramatically. Once known for his tireless work ethic, back-to-back meetings, and meticulous involvement in every project, he began quietly pulling back. Public appearances were canceled. Production meetings were delayed. Even close collaborators reported an unusual sense of distance, as if Simon was withdrawing from the very world he'd dominated for decades. For a man who has always used work as a shield, a way to stay focused and emotionally detached, that withdrawal speaks volumes. Behind closed doors, Simon isn't just mourning Darcy's health battle. He's questioning his own future. The entertainment industry, notoriously unforgiving, rarely allows space for reflection. But Simon Cowell isn't just another celebrity. He's built an empire that, for the first time, he appears ready to walk away from. Insiders suggest that Darcy's diagnosis has reignited long-simmering doubts within Simon about the cutthroat nature of fame, the pressure it places on young performers, and the emotional toll it takes on those behind the scenes. Those doubts, coupled with a growing sense of burnout and personal grief, have reportedly pushed Simon to a crossroads. And now, as whispers of his potential departure grow louder, it seems that the man who spent his life crafting the spotlight may finally be preparing to step out of it himself. The question on everyone's mind: is Simon Cowell's quiet retreat temporary? Or is this the first clear sign that his time in the public eye is coming to an end? As news of Darci Lynne's tragic diagnosis spread, the entertainment world didn't just respond with sympathy, it rippled with uncertainty. Behind the scenes, agents, producers, and executives began whispering about the bigger implications. Simon Cowell, the driving force behind so many of television's most successful talent shows, wasn't acting like himself. Meetings were postponed. Rumors circulated that he was pulling out of future projects. Suddenly, the industry was forced to confront a possibility few had ever considered. What happens if Simon Cowell walks away? For years, his name has been synonymous with discovering and developing raw talent, with shows that have launched the careers of global superstars. But now, those same shows stand at a crossroads. Executives and insiders have been quick to downplay the rumors, insisting that Simon is simply taking time to process and that his departure isn't official. But those closest to him paint a different picture. Friends and former colleagues describe a man who has lost faith in the very system he helped build. Watching Darcy's rise, and now her health battle, has reportedly opened Simon's eyes to the darker side of fame, especially for young performers. It's one thing to guide adults through the ruthless entertainment machine, but for children and teenagers, the stakes are higher, the risks greater, and the emotional toll far heavier. For Simon, whose reputation has been built on pushing contestants to their limits, Darcy's situation has forced a painful reckoning. In private conversations, Simon has allegedly expressed frustration with how the industry treats young talent, pushing them into the spotlight, demanding perfection, and rarely considering the long-term consequences. Darcy's diagnosis has only amplified those concerns, and now, as those whispers grow louder, many believe Simon's departure isn't just possible, it's inevitable. For the first time in decades, the man who shaped modern talent television appears ready to step back, to leave behind the studios, the contracts, the cameras, and the endless competition. Whether it's a temporary retreat or a permanent farewell remains unclear. But one thing is certain: the entertainment landscape is on the verge of a seismic shift, and it all began with the one young star who reminded Simon Cowell that behind every audition, behind every standing ovation, there is still a fragile human story that fame can't always protect. For months now, subtle signs have pointed toward a farewell, that no one in the entertainment industry wants to fully acknowledge. Simon Cowell, the once untouchable architect of global talent shows, has been quietly untangling himself from the empire he built. It hasn't happened with public announcements or dramatic statements. That's not Simon's style. But those paying attention have noticed the gaps. Contract renewals left unsigned, public events quietly skipped, production meetings attended by proxies rather than the man himself. To the casual observer, these seem like minor details, but to industry insiders, they paint a clear, unsettling picture. Simon Cowell is preparing to walk away, and Darcy Lynn's heartbreaking diagnosis may be the final push he needed. Friends close to Simon have described a man increasingly reflective, one who no longer finds the same thrill in discovering the next big star or shaping television's future. Instead, they speak of a man burdened by the emotional weight of watching Darcy, a performer he believed in deeply, face an unimaginable health battle. It's not just professional disillusionment, it's personal heartbreak. For someone who has always prided himself on maintaining distance from the contestants, Darcy broke that rule. Her raw talent, her innocence, her resilience. It reminded Simon of why he fell in love with this industry in the first place. But now, with her future uncertain, he's being forced to confront whether the fame machine he helped create truly protects the people it elevates. While Simon has yet to make any formal announcement, those around him say it's not a matter of if. His once legendary work ethic has given way to long absences from the office. His future on television hangs in the balance. Even trusted colleagues admit they've begun quietly planning for a future without him at the helm. And while some cling to hope that Simon will rediscover his passion and return to form, others believe that Darcy's diagnosis was simply the tipping point, the moment that transformed quiet doubts into a looming exit strategy. If the rumors prove true, the man who built a global empire of talent discovery is about to close the curtain on his own career. And for millions of fans, it begs the question, what happens when the king of talent television says goodbye and walks away for good? For decades, Simon Cowell has been more than just a television personality. He's been a cultural force. Love him or hate him, there's no denying his impact on the entertainment world. The X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent. These shows reshaped television, launched careers, and introduced the world to stars who might have otherwise been overlooked. But now, with Darcy Lynn's tragic diagnosis, pulling back the curtain on the personal toll of fame, Simon faces a haunting question that no amount of ratings or record deals can answer. What exactly is the legacy he leaves behind? Is it a world where raw talent is nurtured and celebrated? Or is it an industry that chews up and spits out its youngest, brightest stars? Insiders say this question has been weighing heavily on Simon's mind in recent months. The success stories are undeniable. Names like One Direction, Susan Boyle, and even Darcy herself are proof of what his platforms can achieve. But behind the glitter and applause lies another, more complicated truth. The industry Simon helped shape is as unforgiving as it is glamorous. The pressure, the constant scrutiny, the relentless pursuit of perfection, it has broken more dreams than it's fulfilled. And for Simon, a man who once prided himself on his ability to stay detached from the emotional fallout, Darcy's diagnosis has made that detachment impossible. She wasn't just another contestant. She was a reminder that beneath every viral performance is a human being, fragile, vulnerable, and often unprepared for what comes next. Now, with whispers of his imminent departure growing louder, the entertainment world is bracing for life after Simon. Some predict chaos, a vacuum in leadership that could send the Got Talent empire into decline. Others see an opportunity, a chance for the industry to evolve, to finally prioritize the mental and physical well-being of its stars over profits and ratings. But for Simon, the decision appears to be less about business strategy and more about personal closure. Friends say he's ready to step back, to let go of the empire, and to redefine his legacy on his own terms, not as the ruthless judge, but as a man who finally recognized the human cost of fame. Whether that legacy will be celebrated or critiqued remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: the world Simon Cowell built may never be the same. It hasn't come with a dramatic press conference or a viral headline. Not yet, at least. But those closest to Simon Cowell say his decision has quietly been made. After decades spent crafting stars, building television empires, and defining what modern talent shows look like, Simon is preparing to step out of the spotlight for good. His health scare a few years ago was one warning sign. The mounting pressures of the industry were another. But Darci Lynne's tragic diagnosis was, by all accounts, the final straw. The deeply personal moment that forced Simon to face the one truth even he couldn't control. Fame, success, applause, none of it can protect the people you care about when life takes a cruel turn. And for Simon, that realization made staying in the spotlight feel not only exhausting, but empty. Friends say the preparations for his exit have been meticulous, as one might expect from Simon Cowell. Contracts renegotiated behind closed doors, production teams quietly reshuffled, successors carefully positioned to carry the torch forward. But what remains clear is that Simon's heart is no longer in the game. The sharp critiques, the media battles, the constant churn of finding the next big star, it's no longer the thrill it once was. Darcy's diagnosis was a painful reminder that behind every viral moment is a young, vulnerable person whose dreams and health can be shattered in an instant. For Simon, who once prided himself on building dreams, watching one of his brightest stars suffer was a wake-up call he could no longer ignore. The entertainment world now stands at a crossroads. The man who helped define modern television talent shows is quietly stepping aside, and the industry is left to reckon with both his achievements and his regrets. As for Darcy Lynne, her fight continues, inspiring millions with her courage and resilience, even as her health battle plays out far from the spotlight. And for Simon Cowell, the legacy he leaves behind is complicated but undeniable, a testament to the power of raw talent, the brutal realities of fame, and the human stories that often get lost behind the bright lights and standing ovations. His departure may not come with fanfare, but its impact will be felt for years to come. The final curtain is falling, and for Simon Cowell, the next chapter remains unwritten.